Hi, and welcome to another episode of Ask Ralph and Lahni. Our topic this time is going to be essential oils, one of my favorite subjects.
And the thing about essential oils is that they're not just a pretty face. They have tremendous nutritive powers. They're very, very healing. They've been used for hundreds and hundreds of years. And yes, they smell great, but they have a lot of other wonderful benefits that you can use in your home and in your business to improve your life and the life of the people around you.
The term essential oils is a bit different than when you hear the term essential in other aspects of natural health. When you hear it related to essential amino acids or essential fatty acids, you're talking about they're essential because you can't make them on your own. You need to take them in terms of your diet. When we say essential oils, it means that it contains the essence of the plant. So this shows you that it's a very powerful concentration of energy because it really contains the full spectrum of what actually is the essence of the plant.
Part of the power of essential oils is that they go to our nose. They work through our sense of smell. And the sense of smell is a very intimate sense. In order for it to work, a particle has to travel through the air and land on the sensor inside your nose. It's got to be inside of your body. Plus, the sense of smell, like the sense of taste, does not go to the frontal brain, where the conscious thought is. It goes to the limbic brain, the deeper brain, where emotions live. This is why you can remember a flavor from years ago, and it will have an emotional message with it. And when you taste that food again or smell that scent again, it reminds you of that experience, that emotional experience from many, many years ago, for good or bad. And this is part of the power of these essential oils. Now, this is where, flowers and foods affect us so powerfully. And one of the things you should understand, though, is that the nose can pick up about 2,200 different scents that we know of. The palate, the tongue, only gets 5 major flavors. Now, you could make a lot of songs that have 5 different notes, but 2,200 different scents, that's a lot of different messages that your body can read. And there are hundreds and hundreds of fantastic essential oils. Some are steam distilled, some are pressed, they're extracted in many different ways. But purity and potency are very important, so it's very important, or we might say essential, that when you buy your essential oils, you get them from a very, very good source.
One of the things that I really like about essential oils is that you can use them in a really passive way to make a maximum benefit on people's health and well-being. People don't even have to know you're using them to get these benefits because, as Ralph said, it's your sense of smell. As soon as you smell it, that particle is inside your body, and that's giving you nutrients and messages to your brain that really affects the neurotransmitters in your brain and the nutritional levels in your body. So we call it undercover health because you don't have to believe in it, you don't have to use it yourself, you don't have to do anything but be in the room where you can smell these scents. It's interesting how industry uses these scents sometimes to make us feel and behave in certain ways. Honeysuckle, for example, can encourage you to spend money, which is one of the reasons why they like to diffuse honeysuckle oil in some of the retail department stores and even in casinos. Vanilla has the same kind of an effect. So you can use these things to modify people's behavior. Lavender is a very cautioning kind of energy. It calms and cautions people to be a little bit more careful. And it can even help people to use restraint, let's put it that way, in using alcohol or other drugs. And so these are interesting little effects that they have on your body and your brain that just happen naturally when you smell them.
One of the things that we're big fans of is using essential oils in your air conditioning and your heating system. What you do is you go to where the return vent is, and if you have an air system, a pumped air system, and you can open that vent up and just set a small dish there with some essential oils in it, or take the bottle and just pop the little strainer off the top, the little thing that brings it down to just a single drop, and just sit that in there inside of a dish, close it back up, and it will gradually evaporate inside of the system. What it's going to do is it's going to use its antibacterial and antifungal qualities to go through your air system and clean the inside of the system. It's going to help clean up the air. You know, before these forced air systems, everyone had radiators. But these big air systems worked really well because they could incorporate air conditioning to them. Well, so they've become very, very popular, but oftentimes there's odd things living in there. So you want to replace your filter, but you also want to clean the air with a little essential oil. In fact, in Europe, hospitals use primarily essential oils in water for cleaning up everything. And they don't use these alkaline, bleach soaps and such. They use essential oils, and they have a tiny fraction of the problems with strep and staph that we have here in the United States.
Well, and an interesting way to use it, as you're saying, you're cleaning the air. You know, indoor pollutants are rampant, and you know, materials used to build houses, off gas, and these particles are often floating in the air. And one of the ways that you can get them out of the air and neutralize the effects of these allergens floating in your system is to make up a little spray bottle of water, purified water, add some drops of the particular essential oil that you want to use, and spray the air, and it will actually, the moisture will attach to the floating particles, bring them down to the ground, and then you can vacuum them up or sweep them up and get them out of your system.
See, the real power of essential oils is this. These pathogens, these viruses, bacteria, mold, and fungus, never become resistant to these essential oils. They have the ability to kill these things, and there's some that are more powerful than others in specific directions. But unlike an antibiotic or even a lye or something like that, these things never are able to develop a resistance against an essential oil. And so you can use them again and again and again, and you're not making these pathogens stronger, which of course is the big problem we're having today. After 50 or so years of antibiotics, these antibiotics have basically stimulated these pathogens to become stronger and stronger. So now we have what's called these antibiotic-resistant pathogens that are so dangerous today. They are not resistant to essential oils.
Other ways you can use oils is adding a few drops to a bath or a foot soak. You can add a few drops to a cream.
Yep.
If you have a therapeutic cream, we have one that we like to use for muscle pain, and we add a little extra peppermint because peppermint has pain relieving qualities, but beyond that it also opens up the pores in the skin and helps the components of the pain relief cream to drive deeper into the muscles in the body. So there's a lot of ways that you can use them.
Now, saying that, read up on the oil before you use it, because there are what you might call counterindications with using certain oils in certain places. For instance, with using things in the bath, there are certain oils that work well there. There's other ones you definitely don't want to use there, and you definitely don't want to use with children. They're very stimulating essential oils, for instance.
Well, and essential oils are generally considered volatile oils, which means they will volatilize or evaporate in the oil, as opposed to being oils that are tenacious and they remain sticky and oily on your hands. And so what you have to remember with a volatile oil is that they become potentiated or made stronger when you add them to water. And in fact, if you get an oil on your skin and it's irritating, or God forbid you get it in your eye, that can be a big problem. What you want to use to neutralize the effects of that is an oil, either olive oil or a neutral oil, safflower oil, a carrier oil for a massage oil, jojoba oil. Or you can use milk, because milk has a fatty component in it, and that will help to neutralize the stinging. It's just like if you get too much red pepper, the way that you neutralize it is not by drinking water, by drinking milk.
Yeah, in fact, you want to make sure you don't use no-fat milk because it won't work. It's got to be the fat component that really works in that. Any kind of neutral fat, and fats are generally neutral, will draw that out and bind it up, and that's very important. You have to be very careful with essential oils, especially around the mucous membranes, the eyes, nose, and places like that.
And there are oils that are so energizing and activating that you can't use them around children who are younger than 2 years old. And I say around them. Certainly you don't want to use it on them, but you don't want to put a heavy concentration of something like a peppermint oil or a rosemary oil or a eucalyptus, something that is very, very strong and energizing, because they have very fine, very thin airways. And if you activate those airways and there's any kind of spasm that goes on in those airways, it takes very little to close them off. So you really want to be very careful with children under 2.
A great oil that many people love and comes from Australia originally is the eucalyptus. Eucalyptus comes from leaf. It's used for respiratory problems. It's actually used or was many years ago in Australia, in the mines for purifying and drying out the air in the mines. It's used a lot here for in all types of cold remedies and such, because it cleans out the lungs very well. It's a great decongestant. But you have to be careful. People with asthma should not use eucalyptus. See, asthma is not as much congestion as it is an autoimmune problem. And the eucalyptus tends to be overly stimulating. With autoimmune issues like asthma, it's about calming the system down. It's not about cleaning it out. Another great plant is geranium. I love geranium. I've used geranium for, 40 years. It's tremendously floral. It's very, very uplifting. And anytime you add geranium to a blend of other oils, it really makes itself known. You see, when you make a blend of oils, if you're going to put oils together, what you want to do is you want to have a floral, a citrus maybe, and then what's called a resin oil, like a frankincense or a myrrh. These are resin oils. They're heavy. They've got a lot of weight to them.
Sandalwood.
Sandalwood is a classic example. Maybe you'd put sandalwood. Maybe in the center you put a little bit of rose. That's your middle note. And then at your high note, maybe you put your bergamot. And so what happens is when the nose smells this, when your body senses it, it gets all these different nutrients at all these different frequencies, at all these different levels, and it makes a very, very complete fragrance. When I first got out of school, I developed an entire line of perfumes and massage oils, and I spent a huge amount of time blending oils, and it started my entire career as an herbalist. Now, geranium is extremely good for anxiety. It's very good for edema. For swollen feet or the body holding onto liquid, you can do with that is mix it into a lotion. If you have swollen feet, mix the geranium into a lotion and rub it onto the feet. Put it under the nose and smell it. And it's also very good for women, especially for hormonal control, for hormonal balance. When they feel like they're having a hard time keeping their body balanced, just smelling the geranium sends the right message to the body, start getting that estrogen and progesterone balance back to where it should be.
I'm glad I get pink grapefruit. It's one of my favorites. I love it because it's good for cellulite, depression, detoxification, edema, again, fluid retention, and weight control, because it really modifies your appetite. And this is one that's really easy to use because you simply take the bottle of pink grapefruit with you, put it in your purse or in your pocket, and before you eat, just take a couple of really good whiffs of pink grapefruit, and it really helps to modify and control your appetite.
A nice thing about pink grapefruit, too, is that everyone seems to like the scent. The citruses generally are very popular. It's probably because people like the smell of food, but pink grapefruit is just a lovely scent. It's very light, it's fresh. It really clears the mind.
Well, and I have a little recipe for pink grapefruit to combine with peppermint. When you have those sore feet at the end of the day, you take a shower or a foot bath and you take one of those mesh scrubbies that really just kind of make soapy bubbles, and Add your liquid soap to the scrubby, and then add a drop of pink grapefruit and a drop of peppermint, and scrub your feet, and you feel like you're walking on clouds
yes, you
afterwards.
do. Yes.
It's
yes.
really nice.
Yes. Next herb is helichrysum. Helichrysum is good for a lot of different things. It has this wonderful scent. You may not be familiar with it. It's not one of those common plants you hear, or flowers, helichrysum. It's very good for bruises, it's burns, for rashes. It's very good for eczema and psoriasis. And as we know, these are very transient kinds of problems. They really take a lot of energy to budge them. And remember, part of the secret with essential oils is they have a very high frequency rate. I mean, when you put them onto instruments, you can measure the frequency rate of these plants. And for instance, we know that the rose plant, or the rose flower, runs at the same frequency as the human heart, which explains an awful lot about why people love receiving roses as a gift. It's also good, helichrysum, for liver congestion. And there's a lot of that walking around these days.
Well, of course, liver congestion is related to a lot of these skin issues and skin problems anyway, because the skin, as you said before, is a eliminative organ. And so you have to really be able to detoxify through your skin.
Right. We had a client, or actually a colleague years ago, who came back from serious heart problems using helichrysum. He always carried a bottle with him, he diffused it, and it just kept charging up the frequency of his heart. It's almost like having a reset. You know, it's like, you know, you have that good friend you go see whenever you're feeling a little down, or you're feeling like you're losing your pathway. You go see this particular friend, and they're real high energy, and they just get you back on your pathway again. That's how an essential oil works. It's got that particular frequency that reminds you where you're supposed to be. And helichrysum is especially good for letting your heart know how it's supposed to be working. Lovely, lovely oil.
Now, lavender is a very popular oil, but this might be a good time to mention that oils are very personal, just like the sense of smell or the sense of taste is a very personal thing. It can really take you back in time to so if you have an association or a connection to a smell, a scent, or a flavor that is not necessarily supportive, it won't work for you the way that these historical uses tell you that they should. So, for example, lavender is a lovely flower. I think it's beautiful, and it's used, in fact, sometimes for people who have headaches. They smell the lavender because it's so relaxing, and it will relieve some of the spasms or tightening in their head, and that's how it works against headaches. For me, it gives me a headache. So remember that there's a personal component here that can't be explained by historical uses.
But remember, if you're going to get lavender, get the Lavandula augustifolia, the highest quality one. You will see a big difference in its effectiveness. It's interesting that the word lavender actually comes from the Latin word for wash, to clean. Lavar, I guess. And sorry, all my different languages are spinning around in my head, and there's so many places where that particular verb comes through. Why? The Romans used lavender flowers, or teas of lavender flowers, for washing their clothes. It's interesting that during the Great Plague, or the Black Death as it was called, one of the regions in France that was completely missed by the plague was where they made gloves. Why? Because when they made gloves, one of the things they used in the process of making the glove leather was lavender oil and lavender flowers. And the people who lived there were actually protected from the plague, the pathogens from the plague, by the lavender oil. It's a very, very powerful, powerful flower.
You mentioned that the Romans used it for washing their clothes. They should have used it to wash their hair because it prevents hair loss.
Oh, yes. It's what we call a mercury herb, which means that it stimulates mental acuity. And you do have to watch out for this. You don't want to use it. Couples should not use lavender in the bedroom, because one of the things it promotes is mental activity. And in the bedroom, you don't want to have too much mental activity. We actually say that it's used for promoting
Chastity.
Yeah.
Put it over the plate.
Yeah,
Yes.
chastity, yes. So you don't want, I mean, you don't want to wear it as a perfume to go out for a night of fun. You don't want to have it in the bedroom.
In our design work, when we have a client whose whole house is painted in lavender and they're covered with amethysts, and they say to us their primary goal is to find somebody to have a relationship with, we had to tell them to change their color scheme. So
It's also very good for insect bites, and lavender, especially the highest quality ones, are one of the few oils you can use directly on the skin. So you can put it directly on an insect bite and it will neutralize that toxin. It's very good for insomnia, it's very good for pain. It's kind of what they call para todos. It's used for many, many different purposes.
we've had many, many new parents who rubbed a couple drops of lavender on the bottom of their newborn infant's feet, either in the bath or just before they go to bed, and they sleep like the proverbial baby.
Right. In fact, whenever you have a question about how to use an herb, you can always rub it on the bottom of the feet because that will filter out so much of the effect. You'll get the effect, but in a gentler form.
Lemon is one of my favorites as well. We associate in our culture, we associate lemon with a feeling of cleanliness and freshness. But it's interesting to note that lemon also cleans out our lymphatic system. And so it's a great cleanser internally, just like we associate with external cleansing. And for that reason, it's also very helpful with cellulite again. So we've got a little pattern going here between the pink grapefruit and the lemon. So people use it historically for colds or flu, depression, even high blood pressure, hypertension. Lemon is very calming for the blood pressure.
Oregano has become very popular in recent years because it has some very good anti-pathogen qualities. It's funny because we originally used it primarily as an insect repellent and for using as a bath to get lice off of animals or even off of kids. But it's in a cream, it's very good for arthritis, it's very good for bronchitis, and it's very good against candida. You know, remember, candida can show up in a lot of different places in the body, so mixed into a cream, if it's showing up externally, it can be used as a cream on the body, and the body will absorb it.
And don't underestimate the power of just sniffing it. You know, if you're not sure how to use it, just sniff it from time to time.
Right, you can always use it in a foot bath. It's a very, very good way to absorb herbs is through the feet.
Yeah, that's an excellent way.
Now, peppermint. I got to talk about peppermint. Peppermint and me were like this. Oh, Lahni calls me her candy cane man sometimes because I love this stuff so much. But it's, once again, one of these mercury herbs that stimulates mental acuity. Yeah, I find I can actually put a little bit on my hand and take a little taste of it to clear the breath. A dot of it up on the temples will get rid of a headache.
Not too close to the eyes.
Not too close to the eyes, of course. You know, far back, keep them away from the eyes. We only put it in your eyes once ever, and it can be very, very, you really have to flush it well. Yeah, you got to flush it, remember, with either oil or milk, not with water. Water can make it worse, okay? It's wonderful for indigestion. Like I said, if you have a little, agita, you take a little bit of peppermint, put it on your tongue, or put a little bit in water and sip it, and it will calm down that tummy. It's very good for nausea as well. It relieves pain. It's also supposedly very good for problems with menopause and for cleaning out the liver. And it's very good for like when people are dealing with issues of grief. One of the reasons is grief and sadness a lot of times are related to the lungs. And peppermint is very stimulating to the lungs. It gets the lymphatic system drains at the bottom of the lungs moving a little bit better. So, with these heavy emotions, the secret of it is to get your lymphatic system moving and let the toxins that are related to these emotions drain out of your body. Get it behind you. Don't let them live in your sphere. You might say in your orbit.
One of the things I like to do with peppermint quickly is when you get a little water trapped in your ear.
Oh, yes.
Or you get a little swimmer's ear. You take just a drop on a Q-tip and just swab just the very outside of the ear canal. You're going to feel energized, almost stinging, but not intolerable. And it gets a little bit stronger, and then it goes away. And yes, you smell like a candy cane.
Yes.
But it really helps to bring extra energy into that area and that the body can drain that fluid out of your ear on its own. So that's a very interesting way to use it on ears that have water stuck in them.
Now, rose is, of course, many people's favorite oil, and it's used in a lot of perfumes, but it's actually very good for helping people with emotional issues, sadness, grief. It just really lifts the emotion, once again, because, like I said, it resonates at the same frequency as the human heart. It's also very good for liver issues, that liver congestion, because the liver is the largest internal organ, but getting more energy to the heart allows the liver to cleanse itself. And it's also good for problems with menopause. It has a distinctly feminine side and hormonal side to rose. You can use it in that way. You can use it by diffusing it. You can use it in creams.
I think it's unfair that rose oil would be one of the most expensive
Yes.
oils.
Yes.
And of course, women are going to love it because the rose oil is so just a beautiful scent. But, then we've got to pay for it
Yes.
to help offset symptoms of menopause. But
Now, a very inexpensive oil actually is tea tree oil. It comes from Australia. It comes from a part of a pine-like tree. If you notice that tea tree has an oil very similar to pine oil, which is another good oil. This is a muscular oil. You have to be very careful with this. It's got a lot of punch, but what it's really good for is getting rid of problems like nail infections, fungus, molds. It's good on cold sores. It's good for acne. It's good for burns, but it's used especially for problems with fungus and mold, nail fungus and things like that.
And this is one of the things that I like to caution people to go a little bit slowly. You can put a drop on a Q-tip and then put a little bit of oil, a carrier oil, on the same Q-tip as you're treating, say, a toenail fungus or something like that. Really moderate it a little bit with an oil because you're not going to decrease the benefit of it. You're just going to increase your comfort using it.
Yeah, when you think of tea tree oil, think of like boxing gloves. This is a real potent oil. It's got a lot of oomph to it. So you handle tea tree very carefully.
And I have to do ylang
Oh,
ylang.
of course, yes.
So nice. They named it twice, ylang ylang. It means flower of flowers. This is just a beautiful, light, floral scent. And I like to blend it with, my favorite blend of all is sandalwood, ylang ylang, and pink grapefruit. I blend them all together in a carrier oil, put them in a little roller bottle and make a roll-on perfume. It's my favorite scent. Sometimes I add just a touch of peppermint to it just to give it a little bit of activation. But ylang ylang is helpful for issues with anger, again with hypertension. You can see hypertension or high blood pressure would go along with anger because you're hyper. Any kind of palpitations or just to relieve stress. So it's a beautiful, relaxing, lovely, light floral scent. There are a lot of other oils that we didn't get a chance to touch on here, but we hope that we've given you an idea about how you can introduce some of these oils into your life and just enhance the quality of your life. So,
I've used essential oils for, I think it's just over 40 years now, and they have so benefited my life and the people around me that it's really remarkable.
they obviously have anti-aging qualities.
And they really are one of these great gifts from nature that we are just so lucky to have, and I hope that you're able to enjoy them and get the benefits that we've gotten from them for so many years.
So if you have questions, let us know through our website, www.herbsorfood.net, and you'll get to Ask Ralph and Lahni.